Welcome to the Idea Climbing Podcast. Making virtual meetings and events engaging can be an arduous task. You must have some key success strategies to work with, and I discuss some of them in this episode with my guest, Chen. John is the author of the #1 Amazon hot new book release, Engaging Virtual Meetings. He's been meeting virtually for over 38 years. He has produced over 4,000 virtual meetings, including an 8 language meeting and the only 100% live virtual conference in the training industry. He's one of only 400 certified speaking professionals as designated by the National Speakers Association. We dive into topics including what most companies do wrong with virtual meetings and events and how to avoid their mistakes, what you need to do in the first 5 minutes of any virtual meeting or event to have it succeed, the structure of a great agenda for a meeting and how to create one, the one thing above all else that you must do to have a successful virtual meeting or event, and other golden nuggets of advice. You're going to love this show. John, thank you for making time to do the Idea Climbing Podcast. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you, Mark. So great to hang out.
And we're going to be talking about the art and science of successful virtual meetings today. We're going to get into some of the tips, the tricks, the strategies, including the flipped perspective of way before the pandemic of you want me to do what? Don't we meet in person? So you want me to do what? Don't we meet on Zoom? But before we get into the strategies that you have, there's going to be a gold mine there. As far as successful, I'll say that, virtual meetings, what is your story? How did you get so good at them?
Oh my goodness, how did I get so good at them? I got to share my last 5 years in 3 minutes, right, Mark? So I read a book called Engaging Virtual Meetings, but how did I get here? I had a rich and illustrious career in corporate team building. Do you know what geocaching is, Mark?
I've heard of it. I couldn't explain it.
Yeah, it's a high-tech scavenger hunt using GPS receivers to find containers all around the world. I turned it into a team-building event to teach team and leadership, and got a chance to do over 4,000 events with. I clocked 160 events in 2019, right? And then of course this thing showed up in March of 2020. This nice little virus showed up, kind of messed up this whole business. I had over 15 canceled programs in 1 month. But Mark, one of my strategies when faced with uncertainty is. Look at the past. So do you have any idea what this thing is? Prodigy. Do you remember this service?
I remember Prodigy, yes. Wasn't it prodigy.net?
Oh my gosh, this is so old school. Yes, it was the first graphical-based meeting space online at a time when modems used to make noise, right? So, yeah, so this just means I've been meeting for a long time online, over 38 years. And in addition to that, I wrote this book, 50 Digital Team Building Games, in 2011. So for decades, I was trying to tell people too, like you, Mark, we can do this. We can actually meet online, do valuable work, have dinner with our family and friends, and avoid all the traffic. And everyone said, that's a great idea, John, but here's a bunch of money and you need to fly to Orlando to deliver this program. So, so now I finally got a chance to do it. So I don't make vaccines, but I do know how to make your virtual meeting better. So I put a class called Virtual Team Building on Eventbrite, and over 5,000 people took it in 2020. And so then my publisher, Wiley & Sons, came back and said, hey, John, can you write your second book? And I said, sure. And then they played the most cruel joke ever, Mark. They said, we don't know how long this pandemic thing's gonna last. Can you rush the book? And so I said, okay. So I wrote 60,000 words in 9 weeks.
Oh my gosh.
And this is pre-AI, Mark. There's no AI. There's only JI. Do you know what JI is?
No.
It's John Intelligence, meaning I wrote all those words, Mark. Comes out, it hits the #1 Amazon hot new release in October 2020. And in under a year, I changed my entire business from team building to now I plan, produce, speak at, and MC at virtual, hybrid, and in-person meetings. And then, Mark, can I show you my #1 tip for virtual speakers?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's do it. #1 tip. Here we go. For those who might not be able to see, I'm walking backwards through a set. I'm just about to show you the #1 tip. That's stand up. If you're giving virtual keynotes, like if you find a way to stand up, even if you just lift your laptop up, you'll be in the top 20% of all the keynotes that I've ever seen, because when you stand up, you get a whole different energy than when we sit down.
Oh
So
my
that was
God.
my number one tip. And the last piece that I have for you, Mark, since you asked, is like, this is what's in front of me right now. This is my space station that I built over the pandemic. This is what I did for the last 5 years, is that right now I have over 17 screens, if necessary, to my disposal. And that's one of the other ways that I do things on virtual that most people can't do.
That is awesome. So let's dive into it. Where pre-pandemic, I'm sure you were ahead of the curve, but you could get away with a lot of stuff on virtual. Post-pandemic and now 2026, even further out, people expect a lot more. Where do you even start? Let's say with you want to have a virtual event, and where does it even start as far as the planning and the structure of a successful virtual event? So it's not just throw a bunch of people on Zoom, see what happens.
Yeah, I think the number one thing to start with is before the meeting, Mark. I ask, right, some very simple question. What do you want? And it sounds really simple, right? But as a consultant, the number one question you can ask is, what do you want? And the funny thing about it is a lot of meeting planners don't know. They're like, I want a bunch of people together. I want us to have some energy. I want it, like, none of those things are really results. Like, what do you really want? You know, like in the pandemic, one of them was like we got to go back and get some real work done because we're all freaking out. And so again, I think it starts there, and that's when you can begin to plan. Once you clearly define, let's say that we got to create a plan for our next 30 days to deal with a worldwide pandemic that we have no idea how to deal with. So now we have a meeting and a plan, and so now we can do all sorts of things inside of that to make it engaging, such as, number one, telling people what the agenda is. Sounds simple. But number two is then creating a process for it. You know, lots of virtual meetings I've seen, Mark, come around and the lead speaker pontificates for 58 of the 60 minutes in a meeting. If that's the way your meeting is running, create a video and send it to everyone and do everyone the favor. They will thank you. But so for me, one of my theories around meetings is do the things that we can't do right with that video, which is all of us brainstorm, we discuss, we find out where everyone's at, actually agree on an idea and a plan, and then, you know, end the meeting so we can follow through with it and see if that's the right result. So those are some of the early indicators of what I think has to happen in an engaging virtual meeting.
Well, get into it a little bit more. As far as engagement, what can you do once you're in the meeting? You have the structure, you give them the agenda, they know what to expect. What do you do to go above and beyond with really making it truly interactive and engaging?
It's the funny thing that you asked that, Mark, because it's going to be an invisible thing that I've been building inside of this box ever since you and I met. So have you ever read Google's Aristotle's research?
No, I have not.
So Google went out and spent a lot of money and studied their highest performing teams for 18 months. And they had wildly different teams, right? One of them was like structured, made deadlines, shipped on time, right? The other teams are wild and crazy. They look like they're going to crash, and then they ship a miracle at the end. And they're both considered high performing teams at Google. And they went and started asking questions like, what is it? Is it the money we pay them, the office, the equipment they give them, right? The leader, the composition of the team? And it turned out it was none of those things. The number one thing, there's 5 things if you go read the research, but the number one thing was that the high performing teams all had in common was psychological safety. And it's defined as, I feel safe taking a risk in front of my team. So what I'm telling you is that if you want a really engaged virtual meeting, you need to start to do things to get people to feel safe in a virtual meeting so that, right, they too take a risk, like by sharing their ideas or whatever it is. And sometimes it starts as early as the beginning. Like I have a saying that says, your first 5 minutes of any meeting are the most important. Mm. Right? Because you signal what's going to happen in those 5 meetings. In those first 5 meetings, let's say, pretend, Mark, I ask you a question. Hey, Mark, how are you feeling? You know what? I feel great, blah, blah, blah. Like, and I just talk over you. I asked you a question. You actually might have started thinking about it, and then I never really asked you for your input. What it does is it trains you, Mark, all right, that me, when I'm a leader, I really don't care about your answer. So you will take the lazy track and going, if John's going to ask me another question, what's the meaning of life, right? You're not going to answer because you know that I didn't really want the answer.
No.
So you stop disengaging. So there are small things that what you want to do, for instance, in the first 5 minutes is engage your group. It can be as simple as asking a question, right? And it can be an easy question like, where are you calling in from? What did you have for breakfast? Or something else. But the whole point around it is to get every single person to talk. Because if you do that in the first 5 minutes, now they know that they're more likely that it's okay that they should chime in at some time during this conversation.
That is awesome and it makes so much more sense. So what do you do after the first 5 minutes? Because at some point you have to present some information. So what comes after the first the first 5 minutes of engagement?
Yeah, then after that, again, you got to know the purpose of the meeting. So let's say we're talking about this 30-day plan or whatever. I would go through and maybe set the context, right? Here's what I know. This is a worldwide pandemic. It's happening everywhere. We need to follow these safety procedures. We can't meet in the office anymore. So whatever it is, right? And now we get into the problem, right? The problem is we have a business. Let's say the business is producing meetings. And we need to figure out how to create revenue. And I would be the first to be honest and saying, I'm not sure how this company is going to make it through, right? So now I'm going to open the floor. I'm curious, and right, I want ridiculous ideas, but using what we have, right? We have certain skills, we have people, we have talents. What can we do with that? And so then again, after the context is to engage other people to allow them to come in and share all the ideas. So again, this goes back to, I've done a lot of facilitation, and Mark, who was just sharing with me, he facilitates a lot of masterminds. So you know what I'm talking about, right? Which is, you got to get your people involved. You got to give the opportunity for everyone to talk, even if you don't accept their ideas. It's okay. But eventually you come around and the group should be able to decide, what is the best course of action. Here's a good side part. There's a woman owned company here in Seattle. And during the pandemic, she was in skincare products, and she discovered that she knew how to make what is it? Sanitizing hand sanitizer. So she was able to create a hand sanitizer that actually was scented. She used essential oils and all this other stuff. She was actually able to quadruple the amount of hand sanitizer that she was able to sell. She actually doubled her business during the pandemic because she came up with an idea that was matched with the need at that time, where everybody was buying up hand sanitizer. And so again, that's the ideal part of an engaged meeting. Like, where again, the idea didn't come from her, it came from somebody else in her company. And that's when you're getting the best from your team, is when they feel safe taking a risk.
Break that down a little more. What is it? Give me this, share a little bit more about the structure of a good agenda. Because I'd imagine it's not just, I'll just have 5 bullet points. What is the structure of a successful and a good agenda?
Oh, that's a good one. Agenda. All right. Well, number one is, again, you got to know your goal, right? We talked about that. The second one is then to have some form of process where you're going to get right. So to me, the word facilitation means to make easier, right? So what we want to do is make the process of getting to a decision easier, right? And then have a way with multiple pathways, though, right? There's some general parts, but you have some strategies to get towards the end, and of course, end on time. There's nothing worse, right, than that brainstorming session that goes forever. So you need somebody to be pushing that. So here's a great example. Mark asked me about what I did last week. I facilitated a tourism summit on Olympic Peninsula. And the things that they asked for last year, they said, we want less talking heads. We want more collaboration. We want more networking, and we want more discussion, right? And so I was able to deliver that, even though I have a 90-minute keynote to open the program, Mark. At least 45 of those minutes were allocated for them to talk to each other. And then going through this process, I have something in addition to psychological safety. It's called syntax. And I learned this actually from Tony Robbins, which is the order that you place the items is actually very, very important and can help you get to your goal. So for instance, in the beginning of the part, I had an energetic video that like introduced them to me, who I am, and what kind of energy I'm going to bring. Then the second part is that they all got a chance to hear something. And then I asked them to meet in pairs and share a challenging tourism story. And by the way, I shared one first, a complete failure that I had in doing something tourism based. Okay. So then they met up as group. Then on top of that, the next part, I had them brainstorm ideas, but I had them brainstorm for 2 minutes quietly without talking to anybody. And the reason why that's important is because I also wanted to activate other different learning styles, such as analytical or introverted, right? Then they got up and shared some of their ideas. And then some stage later, like 3/4 through the program, I had a much longer section of 15 minutes where they all got up, right? And I was after showing them inspiring examples from award-winning destinations. Now I gave them 15 minutes to talk to at least anybody else. And if they had an idea that involved two or more of them, to put them on a collaboration board. So what I'm trying to share with you is like, see how I sequence these. Like these things are easier, right? They're one-on-one or smaller. They're sometimes by yourself. And then you get to these bigger ideas. And the result of that was that even on day 2, we actually had a problem where lunch showed up 20 minutes late. But nobody cared. Because we looked around, me and the meeting planner, like, what should we do? And then we decided to do nothing because everybody was talking to each other.
Mm-hmm.
It was set up on day 1. That day 2, they were so already connected or interested or wanted to know each other that they talked through the whole 20 minutes and nobody complained about lunch being late.
Well, it sounds like, tell me if I'm on point here. It sounds like vulnerability is a big part of this on the side of the speaker to then elicit, if I'm using the right word, elicit vulnerability from the audience. Am I on point? Can you speak more to that about where does vulnerability play a role here?
Well, it's funny too, as a speaker, right? Vulnerability is one of the top ways to connect to your audience. So for instance, I started out the vulnerability. I told a story about I really thought I could make this cool B2C, business to consumer geocaching holiday event. And it was a total failure, Mark. And so I dropped a piece of my own vulnerability saying, right, not every idea in my ideas is great. And in this one, and so you start with that vulnerability. And then the second part around that vulnerability is, can you make it feel safe to share what might seem like a crazy idea? Because often the crazy ideas are the ones that are genius. So here's an example of one. A guy came in, he's in the city of Elwha, and he has been having for years this idea of hosting a symphony for the salmon, right? The salmon is a big deal here in the Northwest. And so the salmon actually run through his city in a river, right up this river. And he wants to bring the symphony there. Number one, the symphony writes a custom symphony for the salmon, right? And then they actually perform it like next to the banks. They actually have a tent there that is for like an ice skating rink, and it's not used during the spring. And so they would put the symphony there, and he just thought it would be a draw. I have no idea if this idea is going to work or not. But again, he had that idea. Here's the other one. I searched Olympic Peninsula on YouTube, and the 4th highest video was something for a raised bog. Mark Carter, do you have any idea what a raised bog is?
What the heck is a swampland that they boosted up 4 feet? What is it?
Pretty close. So a bog, right, is like a water area. A raised bog works in reverse, where the water seeps in underneath the earth and the earth kind of comes up. So basically it builds what's kind of like a water bed. And that when you stand on it, the ground actually moves. And it's actually very rare that this raised bog is like one of only 3 in the world. And this video garnered 535,000 views. So I'm just like, Bogfest.
Yeah, yeah.
If that's what you have and that's what people are interested in, don't fight it. Like, go with it. What if you created Bogfest? You had all these cool geologists who came around, people that came in with it, all these other things, and had, educational as well as experiences on this raised bog, which is very rare. It goes like this too. Like, do you remember the movies Twilight, Mark?
Oh yeah, of course.
So Twilight was based in Forks. So Forks is in Olympic Peninsula, and the Twilight Fest has been going on still every year since the first movie has been released. And they have the old movie stars, or the original movie stars, come to there, and they have this incredible festival in their city, which generates a whole bunch of tourism. So again, Bogfest. If Twilight can be a thing, Twilight Fest is a thing. Why not Bogfest?
That's, oh my gosh. It's interesting how a bunch of little seemingly separate pieces come together to vulnerability and leading with it and getting people to be vulnerable and share crazy ideas and get the brainstorming going. How do you close strong and not just end it abruptly? What's the closing? What's like the sequence of a closing so you close strong and not just end?
So I have it's 6-step engage method, right? ENGAGE. And the last E stands for you got to end on a high note, no matter what happens. And what was interesting about this one too, Mark, I just read a LinkedIn post we're reading and reflecting on, and it says you got to read your audience, number one. And number two, then my piece is you got to end on a high note. And what was interesting as this thing ended close to the end of day two, I kind of got the sense that people were kind of done. You know, like there was already a good portion, 20 or 30% that had left, all right, because they had needed to go on to their business or something else. And so I had a much longer keynote and I shortened it. And the shortened part was all about follow through, right? And it was called 1CCC, right? Which is commit to one idea, right? Commit to staying connected to one person and commit to a date to actually finish whatever your first idea is by. And that was all it. And I cut the rest of I had a bunch of interactive stuff around it, but I just cut the rest of it. And then the last piece that I did is that I had been shooting video and taking photographs of this retreat the whole 2 days. And during one of the sessions, they have collaboration labs that I'm not in charge of. I was able to edit a 3-minute video of the summit. And so that was the last piece that I showed, and nothing better, right? And then the recap video of seeing photographs of people, things that happened just in the last 48 hours, interviews with people of talking about what a great experience it was for them. End of show.
That is awesome. So if someone's watching or listening, we've covered a lot of ground in a short period of time. When it comes to having successful virtual meetings, someone's like, okay, there's a lot of good ideas here. Whether you're reiterating something you said or you bringing up something new, if you're saying, you know what, if you want to do it right, you got to at least do this one thing. At least do this one thing. What would you say to do?
You want engagement? Then engage, right? Which is engage your people. I actually teach this thing now called TTE. Mark, have you heard of it?
No.
TTE, it's called time to engagement. And so if you're the leader, the speaker, the facilitator, the question is, how long does it take you from when you start your meeting to when you start to engage your meetings? Right? And there are approximately 125 Hall of Fame speakers in the world. I can tell you I've been measuring them over the last 3 years. Their time is 0 to 1, right? Top Hall of Fame speaker engaged their audience in some way in the first 60 seconds. And so that's what I'm telling to you. If you have a virtual meeting, find a way to engage all of the attendees in the meeting in the first 60 seconds. Even today, I was on a virtual meeting with like 65 business owners. And the first thing we do is that we call them out, right? We greet them, right? We're saying, hey, Mark, what's up, right? Hello, Frida. Hey, Mary. And invariably they unmute and they say hi. Right? Because I said hi to them. They're reciprocating. And so even that small part, then we end up having a conversation. This is another great piece, right? Connection before content, that we find a way to reconnect together before I start the official start of the meeting and the agenda. So I think if there's one thing you're going to do, find a way to engage all your people. And again, you may have some introverts, right? So you can also engage them in chat. You can engage them by a poll. You can engage them in some other way besides just talking to them. But find a way to do that.
That is some powerful stuff. I appreciate you. And if people want to find you online, where's the best place or places to go?
Yeah, right now you can go to engagingvirtualmeetings.com. And soon to be engaging meetings, because now it's not just virtual. I'm actually producing a course hybrid and in-person meetings. And it's funny, the same principles of engagement, Mark, many of them are similar. Some of them are slightly different, but the main principles of engagement are still out there and valuable in in-person and hybrid meetings. And now I'm also working on this program called Conference Rescue, Mark. If you know of a conference that was a disaster in some way, didn't make registration, right, bad AV, check out conferencerescue.com. And we've been looking to find a way to repair meetings at a budget cost that's lower than the AV that's out there today.
That sounds awesome. Thank you again. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Mark. We'll see you next time.
And scene.
Nice.